All right. Okay, so this is Mr. Ray Ursua. And so tell me a little bit about your history with immigration.
Immigration. My dad was U.S. Navy,
Okay.
so we traveled a lot. I was born in Iceland because my dad is Filipino, my mom is Filipino, not national, they were at the time, but they're full-blood Filipino.
Correct.
My dad was U.S. Navy, so he was stationed in Iceland. My mom followed. That's where I was born, and my brother, we left when I was probably 2 or 3. And then we came here in the United States and we traveled. We never stayed more than 3 or 4 years in any city.
Okay.
So we moved a lot. So I was immigrating my whole life. Then after I grew up here from 2 or 3 all the way up to 15 or so. And then at the age of 15, we left this country, we left the United States, and we moved to the Philippines. So my move from Iceland to here, there was no culture shock because I was too young.
Mm-hmm.
But when I went from the United States to the Philippines, at 15 years old, I had my ideals. I had,
Right.
this is the way the world is supposed to be. The Philippines is a backwards country, you know, and that kind of stuff. And but so when I got there, I was culture shocked in the sense that they weren't as backwards as I thought they were.
So, in the Philippines, you spoke English, or did you learn to speak another language, or how did that communication?
Okay. When it came to communications, when I got there, when I grew up here, my parents spoke Filipino, that they spoke Tagalog to themselves so that we couldn't understand it. Intentionally, they made us grow up speaking English so that we would blend in here. I don't know if they ever had the intent that we were going to go back there for college in the beginning or not. So all I know is we were taught English from the beginning. So I went to the Philippines, I knew nothing. So, but everyone would, try to speak to me. They would speak to me in English, but then they would speak to me in Tagalog, which is the native language. But I wanted to know what they were saying. So what I did was, for my first few months of living there, when I didn't have to go to school yet, I watched a lot of local TV.
Okay.
I mean, I learned by just diving in and watching the shows and trying to understand what they're saying. There's no English subtitles, although it would be nice, but there wasn't any. So I had to understand what they were saying
Through the context.
exactly, and so that's how I learned. College is the same here as it was there. Funny thing is that it is the same here as it is there. I mean, that's the one thing that'll never change. College life is the same in the sense that if you're smart, you go to college and you focus on your studies. I was on the other side of that spectrum. I learned to party in college, and that's not a good thing. Take note, I'm telling you now, don't do it. It's wasting your time, it's wasting your money, it's wasting your efforts. Go to college with the intent of, going through, have an objective, go through the objective. But yeah, there's, I saw a lot of things there in college that I knew were around in high school, but I just was oblivious. Like I knew there were guys smoking dope, but I really didn't ever see them. But in college, I mean, they were doing it in the club rooms and in the hallways. I'm like, well, that's interesting. So and it's funny and it's humorous in the sense that it's the same here as it is there, and then that nothing really changes. College students at that age, from 18 to 20 something, are going to be
not so wise with their
Right.
choices, and then it usually starts at the age of 16 to about 22, 25, in that range. People are not wise with their decisions, and that's a common denominator, no matter what culture you're in.
Mhm. Is there any price differential, or is it cheaper there for college? Or
Oh yeah,
mhm.
oh yeah. It's at least when I went through. I think that the reason my mom and my dad brought us back to the Philippines was because when I was a kid, the high school I was entering, which is why we left. The year before I went into that high school, I was 8th grade. There was a race war. I don't know if you would know what a race war is. Okay, blacks and whites had that high school, Escambia High School in Pensacola. There was a race war the year before I went in, and my mom didn't think I was going to survive high school.
Mhm.
And then it was getting, at that time, colleges were already so expensive. It's always been expensive. College has always been expensive. So they didn't, my parents were poor. My wife looks at us and say, oh, you guys grew up here, you're rich. That's a typical thing in the Philippines.
Okay.
And anyone that's born, or anyone that's living outside the Philippines is rich. They don't realize how much you have to work just to survive. My parents were military. My dad was a chief in the military, which makes practically nothing. And then my mom was a bookkeeper, which practically makes nothing. So they didn't think they could send us to college. They didn't want us to have to work through college, which I think was a bad decision on their part, because I'm definitely the kind of guy that I did not excel in college until I was actually working. In college, the college expenses there are definitely lower than they are here, even by today's standards. But it's still expensive there. But if you're importing from here, you can afford it to go there. My only problem with that is there are certain degrees that you actually have to finish here, or certain things you have to do here, because you won't get the connections. You're already looking. You already found your job before you graduate, right? Even there, I was offered a job before I left the University of the Philippines. I was offered a job, and that's a funny story.
Let's hear it.
You want to hear it?
Yeah.
In college, I was a mess. All the teachers, all my engineering teachers hated me. They didn't think I could do anything. And the only reason behind that was because I didn't apply myself, because I didn't know where I was going. Because I didn't know how electrical engineering or electronics fit in my life. I didn't know it. So the main electronics teacher did seminars and stuff like that for TI, whoever, all these American industries there. They were teaching their employees electronics and stuff like that. So he had a team of guys, and this team of guys said, "Hey Ray, why don't you join us?" And I said, "He's not going to let me join you guys. He knows I failed his class 3 times." And they said, "No, we'll train you." Okay. And it was during that training when I got immersed into electronics, when I saw what electronics can do. I saw the fun side of it, the practical side of electronics, and not the theory. Theory is boring.
Right.
But to make lights blink, to make buzzers ring, to know that you can make something do something, just because you thought of it and you had the idea to manipulate the information to get it to produce something. So the humor there is that the teachers that thought, I failed their classes many times over. Probably don't let my son listen to this. But after being with these guys, I learned I learned electronics. I taught, and then I helped teach the classes, and I helped explain these things to these people. And then I started to excel in the classes. I started finishing tests ahead of everyone else. I started, getting A's in the class.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't that I was stupid. It was just that I had no idea where I was going. I saw no purpose.
Right.
So, and the funny thing is, now that teacher whose class I'd failed 3 times, who had seen me grow in electronics, as an engineer, as a thinker, as a creator. He saw my project. He helped me. He saw my project. He said, Ray, what are you trying to do for your? Because to graduate, you have to create a physical project that does something. So you're an engineer. You have to create something and do it. So I came up with this. There was a display panel that they used to control with wires and a computer. I said, well, I'm going to control that wirelessly. And he goes, that's a 3-year project, Ray. You've only got 6 months. I said, I'll figure it out. And I did. I didn't realize, but at that time, this was mid to late 80s. That was, what I was doing was data transfer, radio data transfer. So basically, I didn't know that I was in the beginning stages of cell phones and texting. My project was that, pushing data, receiving it, and then displaying it. So through radio. See, had I known that, I would have been able to. See, I didn't know, because in the Philippines, you don't know what's going on in technology, but that's what I was doing. So, he before I graduated, he says, Ray, what are you planning to do? Because I've got a job for you at this electronics company. They need some designers and engineers. I said, oh, I'm going back to the States. He wasn't too happy about that. But the funny thing is that he saw me grow, and then he for him hating me for all those years, because I finally found myself. I was a prodigal son. And then he actually was looking out for me.
If you were to describe America to the people in the Philippines, if they've never been to America before, how would you describe it?
Describe the United States as something. It's the same.
That's fine.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Because the people are people. You can make a community.
Yeah.
You can just be part of the community.
Yeah. The food is a little different. Jokes are definitely different. Some of the attitudes are different, but you can find people that you resonate with, and they will resonate with you. And then that's what makes the United States and the Philippines. It's not the countries. It's the relationship between each individual and how those people interact with other people, and then they interact with other people. That's what makes the United States. McKinney is definitely friendly, for the most part. Very seldomly do you run across an abrasive individual here. There are, but very seldomly. And it's just like the Philippines. There are abrasive people, and there are friendly people. Just which one do you want to be?